wanted to make two quick questions. One of them was, Frederica's point, it seemed to me, wasn't just about the kind of Hendricks and Onif stuff, although that's sort of like a fundamental building block for thinking about empire and sovereignty, but that sovereignty might be an empire, and the fact that there isn't really one, but there's still one in the American situation after the American Revolution, that sovereignty is a problem. It's a really fundamental, useful tool for thinking about all the other things we've been trying to think about, and it might just be a really useful tool for saying something more about the American Revolution than it's complicated, right? That, I mean, we can talk about slavery, we can talk about families, we can talk about things through discussing the problem of governing space, governing the self, and governing others, and that sovereignty is a really fundamental problem in the Enlightenment, in the scientific revolution, the early modern period, the Atlantic world, and the age of nation states. And the second question I wanted to raise was about textuality. I mean, I think the mention of the Constitution and constitutional interpretation was really the only mention of the law in this entire conference in a lot of ways. And I think one of the things that would be really interesting to think about is lawyers deal with the text of the Constitution, but historians deal with the text of the Constitution and the text of the Declaration and the text of Jefferson's farm notebooks, for example. And all of those things are things that are redeemed and reworked and put back into public discourse and public imagination through historians' work, and through lawyers' work too, to a certain extent. And so I was wondering if textuality is something that we could think about, not just in terms of something that's a big deal to someone like Jefferson or someone like Hamilton or someone like Adams or to people collecting stuff out of the streets, but to us too, to a certain extent, that the inheritance we're left with to work with and deal with is textual, and what we're delivering to people in our texts is communicating and reworking and writing about text.
I think texts are very important. Here's an interesting dimension of this question. When the people in West Florida set up their republic, they send manuscript copies of their Declaration of Independence and Constitution to the Secretary of State. Since they were not printed and not widely distributed, the Secretary of State, who didn't wish this republic to exist, repressed it and then engaged in the political actions which led to the, shall we say, the deconstruction of the West Florida Republic. When the people from West Florida migrated to Texas and participated in leading the Texas Revolution, they ensured that they had a printing press with them. So copies of the Texas revolutionary document, both the Declaration and the Constitution, were widely disseminated. So that's one interesting sort of dimension to this. Also in Franklin, in their, I think they had two constitutions, both handwritten, by the way. They required that a kind of plebiscite would occur on any law, and printed copies of the law would be distributed by local representatives to the people for comment, and only when those had been collected and brought back would the legislature act on them. Unfortunately, there was no printing press in the entire area, but their sense of that it was important to have this kind of dissemination was dramatized in that provision in the Constitution.